safe services and safe travel to conversation.
In ancient times, and even today, when we lose someone who's beloved and cherishes Nancy, tear a piece of clothing that's symbolic of our heart is torn, our heart is rendered, and it is up to all those loved ones, friends and family, who are here today to heal your hearts for however long that may take. Today, many Jews still tear a piece of clothing, others wear a kriya pin as you are doing now. It's symbolic of bringing your heart together after having rendered apart. And you wear it for 30 days from today. No matter where you are, no matter what clothing you are wearing, no matter whom you come into contact with, to let them know that you are lost, one as beloved as our dear Nancy. Please repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai Dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, eternal judge. Adonai Natan va'Adonai lakach yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh. Praise be the name of the Lord.
Praise be the name of the Lord.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Vaterechu benenosh v'chashrechu Adam le'avedema Yamav kitseler Baboker atzitz v'chalev le'erev D'molevi avish Tashev enosh adaka v'chomer shuv v'nei Adam. Oh God, what are we that you take knowledge of us, or that you make account of us? We are like a fleeting breath. Our days are as a shadow. In the morning we flourish and grow up, and in the evening we are cut down and wither. You turn us to contrition and declare, return to me, O that we were wise and would consider our final end. The glory of humankind resides with us, the living and eternal memory we endure, forever in the heritage that we leave. We gather today to remember and always remember Nancy. We gather with many mixed emotions from all those who are here with all our hearts, our souls, and our might to fill up this whole room with love as they celebration of her life. We gather with those mixed emotions, with the knowledge of her not being on this earth physically, but also with the knowledge that in all God's speed, she is returning to her eternal resting place to be with those who have gone before her, and also with the knowledge, as is tradition in Judaism, for boys and girls not even born yet to be named after her, as they will grow up with the knowledge of all those that are here to cherish Nancy. And I can certainly foresee in years to come, in your homes, there will be many little Nancys running around, and they will be taught that they are named after someone that we gather here today with much, much love. Who among us here has not passed through our own trials and bereavements? Some of us bear fresh wounds on our own hearts, and therefore feel more keenly the kinship of sorrow with those who love Nancy and will always love Nancy. Others of us, whose mourning is more remote, still recall when a silent hug or a kiss or a word brought comfort to our sorrowing hearts. All things pass, all that lives must die, all that we prize is but lent to us. We are travelers on that same road that leads to the same end. And to her beloved family, you have already started to fill out all these forms that must be filled out solely for local, for state, for national, just forms that have to be done, and you will continue in these forms. And on each of those forms will be the date of Nancy's birth, most often followed by a little dash, and after that dash, the date of her passing. What's important, of course, is her birthday, to remember each and every year, her heavenly birthday. And certainly in Judaism, we remember the date of the passing with lighting the yahrzeit candle every year. But even more important than the two bookend dates is that little dash. For that dash is a symbol of love. That dash is a symbol of a life with love given, and certainly, as we see from this room, filled completely, much love returned. So when you continue to fill out all these forms, certainly look at the birth date and the date of her passing, but more importantly, that little dash. For that dash, certainly, is a symbol of love. And to begin those words of love, we call up Bruce, Dan, and Rachel.
Putting this together for someone you love is the hardest thing to do. What do you say about a person that has dedicated their whole life to supporting their family and friends? We can start by saying that if you're in this room or watching online, she loved you and you loved her. If she didn't love you, you would know about it. And you probably wouldn't be here. His wife, mother, Nana, rock of our family, total badass, which some of you are going to learn more about today. Lover of life, lover of friends, and most of all, loved our dad more than anything. If you knew her well, as the lucky of us did, she did not mess around. She lived on her terms, and believe me, she let you know those terms very clearly. She was not a mincer of words, if you know what I mean. Some would say she got her feisty streak from her mother, Etta. Of course, Mom didn't want to admit that. Sometimes my dad would call her Etta, get her a little fired up, and you could see the steam come out of her ears. She was born in Brooklyn, New York, lived with her father, Dan, Mom, brothers, Michael, and Eddie, in Borough Park. Came from a large family of combined Winters and Goodmans and the Schreibers. A really great extended family that always had each other's back. She met Dad in high school, and they were together ever since. Our parents got married in 1966, had me, Bruce, in 68, the knucklehead behind me in 72, and Rachel in 76. An interesting piece of information is that in the 60s, the late 60s, as a female, Mom worked on one of the first business computers for American Express. We're not 100% exactly sure what she did, but involved punch cards and numbers. Some pretty heady work for a young person during that time. I mean, she was way ahead of her time. My parents left New York in 1970, met their good friends Ann and Mark, while living in Westmont, New Jersey. Ann and Mark had a son, Lee, married Gwen, and had Ashlyn and Jacob. The Milsteins are part of our family as well. Ann and Mark loved Mom so much that they decided to buy plots next to each other at the cemetery. I have a high school diploma. A lot of my Cherry Hill friends are here, so they know me growing up. So it's probably the most they've seen me talk. But anyway, so Ann and Mark loved them so much, they decided to buy plots next to each other. Ann and Mom being next to each other so they can yenta together, and put us, and my father and Mark on either side so that I can stop their bad jokes. Terrible. Growing up, Dad worked as a traveling salesman, and Mom held the fort down. She always put 3 squares on the table. We couldn't imagine having children that young, but she did. And Mom was a boss. She enjoyed her bowling league in the old neighborhood. She liked playing mahjong with her friends here and then later on in Montebello. The Cherry Valley Swim Club, where a lot of us young kids got in trouble. She kept us in line. She was awesome. She was an excellent cook as well. I remember one time years ago, she took cooking lessons from Elena Wu, which is a famous Chinese lady in the area, taught cooking. Anyway, she takes all these lessons, decides to cook us this huge Chinese dinner. I mean, and it takes her hours. She's chopping and this and that and da-da-da. So she sets this beautiful, she made crispy rice soup, chicken dishes, fried rice, and these crunchy bananas for dessert. Anyway, she sets this all up. After all this prep, we wiped out this beautiful meal in about 20 minutes. She said, I did all that work for 20 minutes of eating, and now we have to clean up. She said, never again, and she never made Chinese food again. Mom loved birds, flowers, and nature. When we lived in Cherry Hill, it was a huge change from the city, and Dad and Mom decided to make a garden in the backyard. Well, the seeds actually worked, and she was very proud of her vegetables. There's a great picture of her holding up a bunch of carrots and the proudest smile on her face. She loved the flowers and had my father install grow lights in the laundry room. Obviously, I might want to grow something different. But she grew flowers, and Rachel and her childhood friend Chrissy used to play flower shop. One of the plants they named was called, I don't know what that was, growing shrimp. And to this day, Rachel still called them growing shrimp, and Mom always got a chuckle out of it. Outside of her house, we had a bush that would come to bloom every spring. Every year she would quiz us on the name of that bush. We finally learned that it was forsythia, and that turned into a lifelong game between our family to see who would see the first forsythia in bloom each year. They would call each other and say forsythia like a game of tag. Mom won this year and always got a good laugh from it. Rachel definitely inherited her green thumb and love of birds from her mother. Sorry for reading off this. Following the Cherryhood years, we moved to Voorhees, where Mom turned Rachel gay. Did I say that? So, in case you didn't know, Rachel here's gay. And, my mom thought that moving to Voorhees converted her to her sexual preference. But, so I just had to throw that in. So we moved to Voorhees, turned Rachel gay. Rachel was a sophomore at the time, and apparently moved and stressed. My mom thought changed her sexuality. Meanwhile, she loves Rachel's partner, Brooke. The Voorhees years went fast as time often does. During that time, they enjoyed their time with their grandkids, vacations of love and family. They hung out with the Milsteins and the Kellers, and later on, Judy's man, Alvin, down the road. Then Mom and Dad moved to Montebello, where they really enjoyed themselves. We never saw them so happy. Mom got involved in various activities at the clubhouse, as well as water aerobic, Zumba, Pilates, Mahjong, canasta, and bridge. She also joined a book club, took a flower arranging class, and enjoyed dinner with the ladies. She's very appreciative of all her friends in Montebello. As a family, we grew, so did Mom's love. She loved our wives and partners. It was like they were extra sisters and friends. We'd like to send a special thank you to my wife, Jen. Jen has been more or less her on-call nurse and health advisor during these difficult years. She helped with every medical issue over the last few years. It was Jen and my mom that recently conspired for us to plan a family vacation the week before the surgery, and that's going to be probably one of the most important things we did as a family. Mom loved the wives and partners equally, but there was such a special bond that was so important to both of them. Without Jen, we believe there would have been so much less time with her. But in the end, it all came down to my father. She loved my father more than anything, and he loves her more than the world itself. She was the boss, she was the glue, the matriarch of this family. They've been together longer than many of us have been alive. Their incredible marriage was 54 years strong. In times like this is truly incredible. This is going to be the hardest time in my father's life, and we thank you for supporting us, and especially him during this difficult time. Dan and Rachel, say a few words.
I guess what changed me the most is having kids. My mom loved being with the grandkids, and Carrie. For myself, well, that's debatable. I wouldn't say much, just watch the interaction, watch her with the kids, always asking how the day went, what's going on in school, do you need anything, what can I do, what can I cook for you? Exactly what a perfect Nana does. I found it very touching how nurturing she was, kind, loving, caring. She was not judgmental. After all, she was Ed's daughter, as we have mentioned. I always found it moving and touching, seeing the love. She would always tell me how much better behaved her grandkids were than we were, my brother, sister, and me. She said they were smarter, better looking as well. Not what to do. She loved the grandkids so much. Josh, Max, Lena, and Gabe. For me, I always carry the image of her holding the kids' hands and coloring, getting bossed around by Lena on how to color. These little moments are, they're very endearing to me. They're truly special. I wish I could, I could see you guys grow up to be the people you're going to be. I really do. In the past few years, as I grew, I watched how she also interacted with my brother and sister and their partners and their families. I just took notice on how great she was with her families. Jen and Gabe with Bruce, Rachel and Brooke, Carrie and I with the children. I never realized how important family was. It took me to my late 40s. Yeah, I'm a slow developer. My mom, year after year, day after day, always knew, always taking care of us, always making times, always there, just always available. Her actions help show me what it means to be a father, brother, son. She taught me the big picture about family and all family matters. And that means all of you, because we are one big family. Driving into New York to see for Seder dinners, heading in to see, Michael and Jeanette, or Eddie and Irene with my cousins Mark and Danielle and Rob, was we did that a lot growing up, especially when we were young. We should start doing that more often. She always checked in on people. That's just what she did. She liked to call and check on people. Lena and my mom would talk on the echo, and she'd be like, "Nah, I made this." And out here, "I can't see it, Lena." And then she'd move it over, and the echo's looking at the ceiling, the refrigerator. Carrie, then everyone's yelling that they can't see her, and then she's like, she's 6. My mom and dad always took care of us, and still do to this day. They never stopped being mom and dad ever. Always there. Always. I can't explain how much respect I have for how they loved each other and us and our families. They always did their best they could for us. It takes me back and lets me remember and lets me reflect how incredible loved we all are. So, my mother and father never lost their love for one another. And their love for us brings us all here today. So thank you. Thanks for sharing my mother's life with us. And yes, having Jewish parents in their 70s, you have to live your whole life while you're in your mid-40s to mid-50s with families of your own. Getting told what to do daily. Never changed. Never went away. We wouldn't have it any other way. So just, as a family, it's the funny things that you remember, the idiosyncrasies, the odd days, the stupid humor. So one Passover, we had a Seder in New York City with the whole family. It was my mom, dad, Bruce, Rachel, myself, and my friend Brett. As rumor has it, Passover food may give you constipation, gas, cholesterol, as well as a comforting feeling of, soul food for us. Well, one of the guys, I'm not sure if it was my brother, myself, or Brett, 3 animals, decided, so at the Seder table, if you're not familiar, they have all this stuff on there, but they have a plate of hard-boiled eggs. So we're looking at each other, and we came up with the idea, I think it's going to be a great idea to see how many eggs we all could eat. So you had 3 grown men eating as many hard-boiled eggs as you could, laughing, waiting for the drive home. It was putrid. It was really gross. As my mom yelled at me, my dad used some choice words. Rachel cried. And the 3 of us are laughing, our veins are popping out, our heads, spit's coming out of our mouth for hours. And we never stopped.
Meanwhile, we were in a caravan, and the window opened that much. I just trying to get any air I could.
It's like that.
Yeah, things haven't changed too much. It's funny what you remember. And Dave, you're gonna like the story. When I was a kid, I had peed in my pants. I was around 6, as I mentioned, I'm a late bloomer. So my mom said, "Dan, why are you peeing in your pants?" I said, "Mom, I didn't pee in my pants. Andy Gordon peed in my pants." She's like, okay. So, about 2 months ago, I get a call from my mom. She'd fallen in the garage. She can't get up. She had wet herself. So she calls and she says, "Hey, I need some assistance." So Carrie and I drive over there as fast as we can. By the time we get there, she'd, gotten up. She's in the house. She's taking care of herself. we're very upset, very concerned, but she's all down, we're talking with her. So that day goes by and it's fine. The following day I call her, and the first thing I said is, "Did Andy Gordon pee in your pants?" And before I could finish the sentence, she's like, "Yeah, that son of a bitch." Yeah, fucker. And we just started laughing. It was really very funny. It was just, we hadn't spoken about that for, 40 years. So it was pretty funny. It was really in my worst days which I've had a few, she always stood by me and dusted me off, kicked me in the butt and pushed me forward. She was strong-minded, as we all know. She was very loving, as mentioned. No matter what we did, Bruce, Rachel, and myself, she never once pushed us away. She was always there to help, never wavered once. She was the definition of a mom. She was there 24/7. Never turned her back, always there, always encouraging. She is a very strong lady, and we will really miss her.
Yeah, what they said. Mom was my best friend. She was always so supportive and was my rock. We talked nearly every day about anything, everything, or nothing at all. A reliable topic was always, "What's for dinner? Did I eat? What did I have for dinner the prior evening?" And she always went into quite a bit of detail explaining hers, particularly if they went to a restaurant. I'd have to know what Dad ate, what Annie ate, what Mark ate, in great detail. Brooke could come home from work and say, "Oh, so what did Mom eat?" And I could tell you. After the food discussion, she would always ask how the granddogs are doing and always asked about Brooke and send her love. On the weekends, when I go to the donkey rescue where I volunteer, she always made sure that I sent Nana's love to the donkeys. Words cannot express how much she meant to me, to all of us, and how much she will be missed. Sure. Thank you.
Mizmor David Adonai Rai Lochsa Binat Asher Yabitzeni Al Melchot Yenachaleini. Those were the first two verses of the 23rd Psalm. And in Psalm 23, King David writes over 3,000 years ago that God will walk us through the valley of the shadow of death. King David never writes that God will leave us there. So one day when you wake up, on that day, what will be left of your memories of Nancy will certainly be the joy-filled and the happy memories, and those will be the ones that will be passed down the door by door from generation to generation. And on that day you will know that God has walked you through the valley of the shadow of sadness. If you know the traditional words of the 23rd Psalm, we say them together out loud with all of your hearts. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord. We call up with love, Jen.
One of the things that made me fall in love with my husband Bruce was the way he spoke about his mama. She was perfect in his eyes. Not in a creepy mama's boy way, but in a way that demonstrated that he knew what it is to be loved, and she's the reason. I was so nervous to meet this woman Bruce held in such high regard, especially so early in our relationship, but it was important to Bruce. So we met for breakfast on a sunny Saturday in April of 2010. Nancy looked at me with what can only be described as an appraising stare. How someone so tiny and so nice can be so intimidating is still a mystery to me. Bruce and I knew right away that we were each other's person. Nancy never questioned that for a minute, and she accepted me, and my son Gabe immediately. It was like someone turned on the sunshine for us. She didn't exist in our lives, and then just as suddenly she did, and for the past 12 plus years we've had this sassy, cheeky, determined force around, loving us unconditionally and cheering us on. I think that Carrie and Brooke would probably tell you that this was their experience as well. Nancy needed some help coordinating her medical care over the past few years, and I'm honored that she trusted me to do that. She doesn't trust easily, and she does like to have control over things, but at some point she turned it over and said, do what you can do. She wanted to fight, and she fought hard. She fought so hard until we had exhausted every option. And here we are today. But whenever we went to appointments, invariably someone would ask what our relationship was. And Nancy would say, she's my daughter-in-law plus more. Make sure you have that in your computer. That plus more has brought me so much joy. As Bruce and Herb will tell you, neither of us are easy women with which to deal. But Nancy and I understood each other, and we developed a great bond. I really will miss her so much. The thing about Nancy is that she pulled no punches and didn't sugarcoat things. I always knew where I stood with her. That's led to many hilarious moments of Nancyisms. Like the morning of her surgery, we're in the pre-op holding area getting her ready, and she decided to tell me that Rachel's hair looked much prettier than mine. That was our last conversation, actually. But on the flip side, when she said, I love you, baby, I knew she meant it. Which brings me back to the beginning of my story when I said that Nancy taught Bruce how to love and be loved. Everyone who's here today came because you felt that love from Nancy herself or from someone who Nancy taught to love so deeply. Well, I think we can all agree that we didn't have enough time with Mom. She did her job better than anyone could have asked. And Nancy's love is and will be her legacy. Thank you.
The highest compliment that you could call a Jewish woman is an Eshet Chayil, or in Yiddish, a Eshes Chayil, which means a woman of valor. Certainly in that category of an Eshet Chayil is Nancy. No words had to have been said today. We can just know that by the amount of loving friends and family here today to celebrate the love of our Eshet Chayil, and for Nancy, a good wife Who can find her? She's worth far more than rubies. She brings good and not harm all the days of her life. She girds herself with strength and finds her trades profitable. Wise counsel is always on her tongue, and her home never suffers for warmth. She stretches her hand to the poor, reaches her arms to the needy. All her friends praise her, and her family blesses her. She is known at the gates as she sits with the elders' dignity. Honor are her garb. She smiles at the future. We call up with love Lena and Callie.
Lena wrote Nana a poem. It's called The Red Cardinal. She's going to read it to you.
I can see you in the clouds up high. I can see you fly wherever I go. I like the sound when you chirp, so I can hear you far, far away. In the far, far past, I can see you, and that's when I say, I love being in the cloud, Mama.
If you have the opportunity to see all the pictures, the beautiful pictures outside, you see they were divided into different categories of how Nancy was called by you from your heart. Certainly she had many names according to the relationship you had with her. Silly names, nicknames, family names. When we say the words, we will remember. Please say out loud the name that Nancy was known to you as, specifically the name that you called her in this life, that you will have the honor and the privilege of calling her when you have thoughts of her and dream about her. Say that name out loud. In the rising of the sun and at its going down, we will remember. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember. In the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we will remember. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us, as we will always remember. We call up with love the Milsteins.
Oh, boy. Not an easy thing to do. I told her the other day that I wanted to get up and I wanted to say some things about Nancy. And here I'm sitting next to my adoring, wonderful wife, Annie. And she says, don't forget to say how we were blessed to have Nancy in our life. The incredible thing is I'm sitting there thinking the same thought, but I was going to say, thank God for allowing us to have friendships of two people, Nancy and Herb Schreiber, to allow us to be in their lives as we have allowed them to be in our lives. And it's amazing how opposite people attract one another, because Herb and I, we're endearing, we have enduring thoughts about one another, we love one another, always think about one another, and those thoughts are the same for Nancy. The difference is that Herb is here, Nancy is not, but she will be thought of every day. And one of the times that we're going to think of Nancy the most is that Friday night is the night that the Schreibers and the Milsteins go out to dinner. Every Friday night, has to be for 45 years. And Herb would call me up Friday afternoon late. Mark, what are we having for dinner tonight? I said, Herb, what would you like to have for dinner? I don't know. Herb, you want to have Chinese food? Maybe. Herb, you want to go to Victory Lane? No, that may not be a bad idea. What do you feel like having, Herb? You want Italian food? You want to go to Michelangelo's? You know, that's not a bad idea. I said, you know what, Herb? Why don't you call Nancy and ask Nancy what she would like to have for dinner? I said, because she's going to make the ultimate decision anyway. He said, well, that's a good idea. He said, why don't you call me back in about an hour? I said, okay. Oh. I called him back and I said, what are we going to have for dinner tonight, Herb? He says, I don't know. He says, I think Nancy wants to have Chinese food. So, of course, we had Chinese food. But I want to say that life is very short, and I cannot comprehend what is a second, what is a minute, what is an hour, what is a month, what is a year. I am now in my 70s. I was just in my 30s. We met the Schreibers, I think in our late 30s, or it could have been early 40s. I never forget anything, but I don't remember how old we were at that particular time. In any event, time flies by like a snap of a finger. And the Schreibers have been in our lives for 45 years. We have done many, many things with the Schreibers. We've had so much compassion and love, companionship, and we share and enjoy each other so very, very much. And Nancy always allowed us to be ourselves, even though that Nancy was very, how can I put it to you, very verbal and outspoken, and certainly had a way of telling us what her thoughts were. And I almost hear her saying now to me, Mark, stop picking your teeth with that toothpick. I can't stand it. And I look at Nancy and I said, you're right, it's not the right thing to do. But I didn't get rid of the toothpick, I put it in my pocket, you should only know. And after we dropped them off, I would pick my teeth with the toothpick. We went to Hawaii, and I'm trying to think of one of the islands we went to. It was a hot day. Was it Maui? I don't remember. But it was like a gorgeous mountainside. And she said, you're going to pull in here? I'm driving the car. I said, yeah. She said, you're going to pull in here? Oh, do you see the bird? Do you see the parrots? So we got out of the car. And we're walking around. It's Herbie, and it's Nancy, and it's Annie, and it's me. one of the hottest days. And they had like a sandwich shop there. We went and we bought ourselves a couple of sandwiches. We bought some cold drinks. And as we're walking up this mountain and looking at the beautiful countryside, I see this guy with a dog riding a bicycle with a cart attached to it, and he's sweating profusely. And Nancy says, well, geez, maybe he would want a drink or something like that. I said, that's a good idea. So I said, excuse me, and his nails were filthy, and his face was unshaven. And I said, how would you like a cold soda? He said, boy, that would be great. I said, and you know what, we have a sandwich here also. Oh, he said, you do? I said, yeah. I said, have a sandwich as well. I said, is this Hawaii? I mean, is this owned by Hawaii? He said, no, this is separately owned. He said, I said, wow. I said, does your boss know that you work like a dog on this place? He says, I am the boss. And it turned out that he lived next door to John Denver. And he was in the music business. And it was just very, very interesting. But the thought of it all is that the four of us were always together. And no matter where we went, if Annie and I wanted to do one thing and Nancy and her wanted to do the other thing, it was never a problem. We'll meet you back at 8 o'clock. I think there was a few times, sir, that I had a walkie-talkie. And I would call her, but it's Mark, what floor are you on? We'll meet you at 3 o'clock or whatever time it was. But there wasn't a time that we went anywhere. We went to a lot of places in our lives, thank you God. But there wasn't a time that I can recall that we only had the best of times, great memories, and just having each other's company. And Nancy, we're going to miss being with you. You're one of the most loving, affectionate, endearing people that I've ever had the pleasure in my life to call a friend. And I'm speaking for my wife, Annie, who was her best friend. And I just can't believe that we're here today. It's just so hard for me to believe. But I know that other than Nancy being there, that she's somewhere in this room listening to me and seeing all of her friends and neighbors and relatives and all the people that love Nancy Schreiber. And she will always be in my head and all of our heads and her adoring family as well. Thank you for listening.
Lovely words for all of us, called the last 5 minutes. If we discovered, the late Christopher Morley observed that we only had 5 minutes left to say all we wanted to say, every telephone booth will be occupied by people calling other people to stammer that they loved them. Why wait until the last 5 minutes? Once again, with love, we call up Rachel.
This is written by my father. Nancy and I met in high school. She was beautiful. We did not date, we just knew each other. One day we were riding the subway and met. We had a conversation and somehow I got her phone number. We started seeing each other and yes, we fell in love. It was a good thing that her brothers didn't push me away. Somehow they knew I was here to stay. Of course, I was bigger than them. Nancy was a badass. One time we went to dinner with a group of her friends. Sitting opposite to me was a girl, and she started playing footsie with me. I pointed this out to Nancy. She immediately got up and gave that girl a swift kick in the leg. Then Nancy was a fighter. She had breast cancer, never complained, had surgery, chemo, and radiation. In the hospital, her hair was falling out, so I went and I got the clippers and shaved her head. It was hard for me to do. She looked at me and said, "This too shall pass." While she was recovering in the hospital, they found out she had heart issues. She had several stents put in. Later on, we found out that she was diagnosed with additional heart problems. She said, "This too shall pass." Had major open heart surgery, her aorta crumbled, and had a dichron aorta put in and a valve repaired. In addition, she had a mechanical valve and a pacemaker to boot. She said, "This too shall pass." During all her hospital visits and medical procedures, she never complained. As time went on, she took advantage of our clubhouse. She did water aerobics, yoga, played cards, mahjong, went to the gym, and even started doing Zumba. It was great. She was happy. Never complained about anything. Then her health started to go downhill. She had to stop all her physical activities. She was really having a very hard time. She could not walk, had to take nitroglycerin just to get from the bathroom to the bedroom, or vice versa. She had additional stents put in, and that did not work as we thought. She was frustrated that she had limited mobility. She needed a wheelchair and a walker. So she opted for a very dangerous procedure. Prior to that, our children rented a beach house on the barrier islands. She had a ball. It was great. The whole family was there, and we spent a lot of quality time together. We all knew that this was going to be a very difficult operation. She did not want to live the way she was. Nancy made her mind that she was going to do this. Unfortunately, complications during the operation caused her to pass away. She knew the odds were stacked against her, and she made her wishes known to the family. She is truly the bravest and strongest person I know. She was a mother, grandmother, sister, aunt, and my beautiful bride. We were married for 54 years. Nancy was my rock, always there for me. I miss her so much. I feel lost without her. My sweetheart, my beautiful baby, I love you. Rest in peace.
Before we conclude with the Amalei Rachamim, the prayer of our departed, the family would like those who would care to give from your hearts in the name of Nancy to give to the American Cancer Society. That's cancer.org. And after the funeral at Crescent, everyone is cordially invited back to the home at 17 Genova Drive in West Berlin. If you are able, we rise for the Amalei Rachamim. Amalei Rachamim shochim b'amromigim hamitzei menucha nechona תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים טהורים גזרה רקיע מזהירים את נשמת חנה בת דוד שלחה לעולמה besitzer kinafal ramim vitzra hachayim Shalom al mishkava v'namo. Amen. And finally, compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence. Please say the name that Nancy will forever be known to you as. Who has entered eternity, O God of mercy. Let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us all say, you may be seated.
Will the pallbearers please step to the center aisle? And I'll ask if we can all rise once more, please. You may be seated, please. We'll ask that you kindly remain seated, please, just for a moment.